There are so many different kinds of birds. The world of birds is so much like our own, full of beauty and despair. Birds are full of lessons. Hummingbirds, hovering gracefully over the most fragrant flowers, teach us of all that can be accomplished in such a short life. Woodpeckers teach us that we must work hard for our food. Seagulls remind us that, if we look hard enough, there are always French fries at the dump. My name is Patrick Shanigant, and I've been a public broadcaster for 45 years. I began broadcasting in 1979 when I was 22 years old. I had dropped out of high school a few years before to follow the Grateful Dead on tour. We went all over the world. I hitchhiked to get around and worked odd jobs to pay for food. During these travels, I saw a bird that changed my life. A painted bunting. The plumage, the beak, the knowing look. I had never been so overwhelmed. At this point in my life, I had been on the road for 4 years, living with the greatest band on the planet. I was experimenting with drugs and group sex almost nightly, but I had never experienced a feeling like when I saw this bunting. I became obsessed. I packed my bags and moved back home to Salt Spring Island so I could pursue my new passion. I was out one day, peering at sandpipers through the morning fog, when I was approached by a fellow birder. His name was John Davidson, and he was a producer at CBC Radio 9. He asked me if I'd be interested in hosting my own program on the radio. I was unsure at first. There were a lot of jobs to choose from back then, but I decided I would give it a go.
Wait, so a man in the forest asked you if you wanted to have a show on the radio?
Yes, the media landscape was very different back then. My show, Ornithology Weekly, has aired every Saturday at 6 a.m. Mountain Time for almost 45 years. The friendly little sparrow was perched on a branch about halfway up the fir tree. I could tell from his cheerless chirps that he was dismayed at the subpar pruning job. My neighbor has no idea how to care for that tree, and it will die someday soon, along with all the forest creatures that call it home. I hope you will all join me in writing letters to the district councillor. Turn around right behind you there. They always try and corner you, you know? That's how they get the French fries. There's one over to your left to distract you. The crows hate me because they hate that I have French fries, but once they take them, my French fries are actually just made out of mushrooms. I feel quite protective of this island. I actually ended up owning most of it by accident. Back in the 1980s, an acre of land here was less than the cost of a car, so I ended up buying all the prime birding land.
What's the property worth now?
It's worth about $30 million now. About 30.8 now. It's so important to get out in the world. A lot of young people today, they hide inside and are afraid to answer the phone. Sketching this manhole cover. I didn't even graduate high school, and I own all of this. If I had any advice to young people, I would say, get out there.
You look remarkably young for somebody your age. May I ask how old?
I think it's because I don't worry too much. Most people spend their whole day worrying. If you are stressed out, just walk into the forest and admire the natural world. Nature is nourishing, especially when it is legally yours. I was not aware that anybody was putting in any septic systems here. This is at the edge of one of my other properties. Yeah, that's that's illegal. And I didn't approve this. So, there's like a bird around here somewhere if you want to film that. I don't know how to edit audio, so once I finish my recording, I take the Zoom microphone that CBC sends me, and I simply mail it to Toronto. Like so. I just send it up, and then they send me a new one, and then I record the next episode the next week. It's been like this for 45 years, except of course in the early days it was magnetic tape. I don't plan on retiring. I love this work too much. I get to meet so many birds and so many people from the bird world, like Janet Askew, Mervyn Moore, Dr. Evelyn Crabtree. It's important when you're out birding to make sure you don't get lost. So I always leave a stick like this, pointing back towards home. There was talk about cutting my program due to the cost. Perfect. But my loyal listeners were able to convince CBC to continue to fund the program. I have reduced the budget somewhat, but the quality remains the same. Good news, listeners. I think the crows have finally resolved their differences because I haven't seen them gathered on their argument branch in 3 weeks. I don't care so much about my legacy. I'm a servant of the bird kingdom. You could say my entire life's work is for the birds.